Well, you know Uncle Dan.
Yeah. I do know Uncle Dan. He's me.
Yeah, but can you really know thyself?
It's a good question.
But that's not the question we're asking today. The question we're asking today is, what is the science of religion bringing to the table? What is the cutting edge?
Maybe I could know myself if I did an e-meter. But
absolutely.
Can you e-meter yourself?
No.
No.
Because they don't work on anybody, no matter who's doing it.
That's the Scientology version of Schrodinger's cat.
If you e-meter yourself, I think you disappear into a volcano of Thetans.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you e-meter yourself, you go blind.
I've heard that.
So our Uncle Doug, who is our special religious technology correspondent, is here today to talk about.
Well, yes, indeed.
What's the latest?
Well, I thought
unscientific America.
Did you go to religious CES?
in
in anti-scientific American, the journal.
this
religious
particular
technology.
little piece of scientific technology was a lot of fun to research because, Uncle Mark recently had a birthday. I think his 64th birthday.
Happy birthday, Uncle Mark.
And none of that's true, but go ahead.
And I thought we could talk about something that he is uniquely familiar with.
Oh, boy.
So I thought today we could talk a little bit about the Necronomicon.
Whoa. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
I don't think that's real.
I've held it in my hands.
Kind of funny. The Necronomicon is there a convention for the Necronomicon?
Yes, exactly.
It is a fictional book of sacred scripture, which is as real and credible as the Bible, the Torah, the Talmud, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, the Orange Catholic Bible, and Xenu's 1,000 Ways to Cook a Thetan.
The Orange Catholic Bible. Oh, fuck yeah, Dune.
Oh, pardon me.
I'm going to enjoy this bit.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
The Necronomicon is what is referred to as a grimoire. It's a textbook of magic. That's the actual name for it. It was first referenced in H.P. Lovecraft's short story The Hound in 1924.
Oh.
Yeah. In the story, two grave robbers exhume a jade amulet from a skeleton they recognized from its description in, quote, the forbidden Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul al-Hared.
Also known as the online Goop shopping directory, where they got the jade egg to put in the skeleton.
/ anarchist cookbook.
Yeah.
The two robbers meet a predictably dreadful end, and then the Necronomicon doesn't play any more role in that particular story, which, if you haven't read, you should. It's great. Interestingly, among the trophies these two Tomb Raiders have in their basement in that story, there is a bound and locked portfolio in tanned human skin, which was not the Necronomicon, although that is kind of the style and look it's taken in popular culture.
Yeah, that is the Book of Mormon.
Lovecraft, as you well know, is not only the creator of the Necronomicon, but the inventor of such notable deities as Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth.
Are you sure it's not Cthulhu?
Cthulhu?
Yeah. Cthulhu.
Also inventor of
Cholula.
Cholula, the hot sauce.
Yeah. The god of hot sauce.
Lovecraft claimed that the title of the Necronomicon came from the Greek, meaning an image of the law of the dead. It has also been interpreted as the Book of the Names of the Dead, Book of the Laws of the Dead, and Sprinters Aren't Real Swimmers. So even though it was a throwaway reference in a small story, the book took on a life of its own, and Lovecraft even wrote a story called The History of the Necronomicon. In it, he wrote that it was originally called Al-Azif, which is translated to that nocturnal sound made by insects which presage evil.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They got a word for that?
Yeah. Well,
in Arabic?
This is all made up. Lovecraft made all
this
up. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just part of his mythology, and it was in a bunch of his stories.
Right. And he didn't need to actually look up anything in Arabic.
No, because he was making it up.
Who would ever find anything out anyway?
He didn't research any Greek or any Arabic. He just made it all up. It's fucking fiction.
Okay.
All right. So in his story, the book is passed from mystic to mystic over hundreds of years across the Middle East and Eastern Europe before finally making its way to America and being translated into English in the early 20th century.
Bad idea, guys. Don't translate those books.
So Lovecraft wrote very little about the contents of the book, except that it was full of evil and dangerous writings. There is one passage, however, in the story The Nameless City, which he attributes directly to the Necronomicon, which is, quote, that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die, which sounds very Necronomicon-y.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Necronomiconical.
Although the book was an invention by Lovecraft, completely made up, within his lifetime, several versions of the book were created by fans and pretenders.
Wow.
It shows up to this day in online book sales, bookstore inventories, and library catalogs, even though it doesn't technically exist.
I love it.
The Vatican, even today, receives requests for it in the Vatican Library.
If there is one, they have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are several actual versions of the Necronomicon that have been created, and they're completely apocryphal, completely made up, but they exist. Among the several versions, there was a real translation published in the 1970s under the pseudonym Simon, and it has sold over 800,000 copies and is still in print today.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, so just he made up the book as just part of a story, and now it exists. It's like blue meth.
I love it.
Yeah. Blue meth. The Necronomicon has made several appearances in pop culture over the years, notably in Friday the 13th 9, Jason Goes to Hell, which we will not talk about today. However, the most famous and important appearance is in the Evil Dead film trilogy.
That's right, motherfuckers.
Yeah. So, The Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, 5 college students go on vacation in a cabin in the woods and find a copy of the Book of the Dead, a.k.a. the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, along with a tape recording of someone reading from the book. When they play the tape, the evil Dundarian demon is loosed and begins to kill them one by one, turning them into zombie-like deadites. The protagonist of the movie, Ash, played to perfection by Bruce Campbell, manages to use the Necronomicon to open a portal that sucks in the demon, but also pulls him, his new chainsaw appendage, his shotgun, and his Oldsmobile Delta 88 into it, sending them back to the year 1300. So...
and that's where Uncle Mark joins the story.
Exactly.
Yes. I was there in the year 1300.
That's right.
Yeah.
So before you take on the story, I just thought people might be wondering about that particular shotgun. And if you're wondering, it is a 12-gauge double-barrel Remington made in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with a walnut stock, cobalt blue steel, and a hair trigger. It retails for about $109.95 in the sporting goods department. So remember, shop smart, shop S-smart. But for you primitive screwheads, we'll just call it his boomstick. So... Somebody's laughing. I promise somebody's laughing really hard.
These are inside jokes for those of you who adore the Ash films.
The work of one
Sam Raimi.
Sainted Sam Raimi.
Yeah, so, Uncle Mark was there at the time.
Take over, Mark. We want to hear some
Here's how there I was. I was 15 feet from Bruce Campbell when he said, shop smart, shop S-smart. This is my boomstick. Yeah, I was 15 feet away. So, yes, your Uncle Mark, in addition to being... celebrated podcaster and man about town and sex bomb.
Celebrated at least in his own home.
One of those things is true.
At least in his own head.
Was I operated a puppet or two on Army of Darkness, and it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
And I held the Necronomicon in my very hands.
That's right.
Because for days it just sat. If you remember the scene where it's kind of locked in a strange little vestibule, with like a Sears garden gate in front of it, it just sat there for weeks while we were shooting, so you could just kind of go look at the Necronomicon. So it is, and it was a cool, rubbery, skin dead prop.
Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, and if you have not seen the Evil Dead movies, and most particularly Army of Darkness, you have no business listening to this podcast and should delete the app and refund our money. So
refund our money.
Wait, we're paying people to listen to this? I feel like we're doing this backwards.
Dan didn't know that. If you're not dork enough to know what the Orange Catholic Bible is and the Necronomicon, maybe you should just go. You should go be a Mormon.
Just turn into a comic book podcast.
I do not agree with any of this. But I don't know what any of you people are talking about.
In truth, having worked with Sam and a lot of the people in that universe, if you have not seen Evil Dead 1, you can miss.
Evil Dead 2 is a remake of Evil Dead 1.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you can forget Evil Dead 1. It's not great. Evil Dead 2, it's October.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is weirdly one is said by many horror directors and creators is the most influential horror film among other horror filmmakers ever.
Yeah,
and it's one of those fun, like it sort of pioneered the genre of comedy horror.
Yeah, it's joyful. It's hilarious.
It's just a
bloodbath.
It's a bloodbath,
but playful the entire way.
It's weird and funny, and it's just how he invented this genre that hit all those strange notes is just something else. And then we took it into a very strange direction with King Arthur.
Yeah.
in Army of Darkness, and there you go.
And the plot in Army of Darkness, Ash, in order to return to his own time, he must find the Necronomicon. But before he can take possession of it, he must say the mystical words. Anybody?
Klaatu Varata Nikto.
Close. Barada.
Barada. Which was from originally
the day the Earth stood still.
The day the Earth stood
Boy,
still.
we're getting in there.
Wow.
There's one guy just bubbling with excitement right
Jizzing.
now.
Right? Yeah, and it's Uncle Mark.
So there's not much more to it. I mean, aside from the fact that the editions that literally exist are just stupid.
They're fanfic.
They're basically
fanfic.
yeah. Some people actually believe that there is some mystical power to it, but of course there's not.
I mean, here's what's interesting about this. There's very little difference between this kind of thing where some fucking sci-fi writer has conjured up this idea, and it finds its way into the sort of common lexicon and
the ether,
the zeitgeist, and then it just becomes a thing.
Yep. Now it's just part of it.
And so I think that this kind of thing is where a lot of religion has come from. Like a significant amount of actual, genuinely believed religion started as someone just coming up with a thing.
Of course.
And then it gets, the rumor mill gets around like a fucking virus.
Right.
And then before you know it, people just believe it. And then, at some point, some pope is like, well, yes, of course that's true. We all know it's true.
It's the telephone game. Like, look at when did Lovecraft write the story with the Necronomicon?
1924.
The 20s, right?
Yeah.
People in 100 years later, less than 100 years later, think the Necronomicon is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than a movie prop.
And
They think it's a
Lovecraft
real thing.
never meant really for this to happen. He didn't
No,
even
of
really
course
want
not.
it to. It literally just took its own life on and became a thing.
And this is the kind of thing that plays out over and over and over again. And nobody looks at the source. I mean, this one, what's lovely is that we have the source. We know exactly the font from which it flowed.
Yep.
But
We can trace it to its origin.
But so many of these other ideas
Yep.
weren't, Christianity is just chock full of ideas that weren't from the Bible.
Right.
That just made it into Christianity because someone said it, 8 other people believed it, and passed it on to 8 other people.
It's kind of a miracle that the writing method involved preserved the story of Utnapishtim.
Right.
And we know
Right.
that is the source. I mean, it's obvious that is the source for the biblical story of Noah.
Right.
So that's a rare occasion where something from that much antiquity we know fairly certainly.
Well,
but here we can see it in microevolution.
Right, but what's so strange about it, too, is we can trace this back to the author.
Yeah.
The author said, I made it up, but even and still, we have that on record. We know when it happened. Even and still, there are people who believe it's sacred.
Yeah.
Right.
Like in the 20th century.
Dum-dums.
Yeah.
We are a species of believers. We believe things.
Yeah, well, if you want to believe things, you could do worse than the Necronomicon. That's for sure.
It's pretty bad.
You could do it's not real. That's the takeaway.
Well, spoiler alert.
I would take Love Thy Neighbor over Dead by Dawn, to be quite honest. So, well, with that, How to Heretic salute to the oeuvre of Sam Raimi and Schlock Horror,
Yeah.
and Uncle Mark.
And
Let us move on.
yes, all right.